Hi, everyone. I'm Jane Applegath, and welcome to the Epic Vision Zone. Our goal with this show and company is to bring you trailblazing women from around the globe to share their ideas, their knowledge, research, and inspiration to help you transform your dreams into epic success. Today's epic female entrepreneur is Margot Zaher, an Amazon best-selling author and empowerment and relationship coach. Margot holds a master's in psychology and is a certified professional coach, hypnotherapist, and EMDR facilitator. Her expertise is in coaching women in stagnant or troubled relationships to break free of unhealthy patterns, shift fear into confidence, and reclaim their power so that they can experience deeper levels of connection and intimacy with their partners. As the creator of the Women's Empowerment Academy and the Relationship Reset Bootcamp, Margot has helped hundreds of women reclaim their power in intimate relationships. Her Amazon best-selling book titled The Golden Cage, From Entrapment to Empowerment, guides readers through a step-by-step approach to identify and break free of life's cages, including relationship ones. Margot applies her personal experiences to being stuck in troubled relationships, to manifesting her soulmate, to help women create greater intimacy, connection, and trust in their relationships. She has been featured in Authority Magazine, Thrive Global, Bustle, appeared as a guest on numerous relationship podcasts, and as an executive contributor for Brains Magazine. Welcome, Margot.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here today with you.
Thank you, Margot. Oh my gosh, so that our audience knows, we've been a little frazzled. We've had some technical difficulties, some major technical difficulties. So we're all here trying to catch a breath and move forward. So we're all grounded now. And my first question, because I spoke earlier with Margot and we had some incredible insight into her past, which I say goes from corporate success to starting over. And she, a very young age at 29, I asked myself, you took the leap from a secure job in Paris, France, of all places, and you took the leap to working as an entrepreneur. Tell our audience a little bit about that and your why.
Yeah, so I was working as a brand manager for Procter & Gamble in Paris, and it was this very prestigious job. And unfortunately, though, I was really not happy. Like in my heart, I knew I was meant for more things. I would wake up in the morning and just dread going to work. Mostly because I thought that it didn't really serve a good purpose. I thought getting clothes cleaner, selling detergent wasn't really my mission in life. And so I was pretty miserable. I felt lost and like my life had no real meaning. So that's what put me on the search to let go of a really secure job in a corporation that's very prestigious.
Yes, that must have been a difficult decision at 29. You know, you said to me earlier that a lot of your friends and families were basically thinking, what is wrong with you? You've got a great job, great pay, and you're living in Paris, France. So that took a lot of guts to make that decision.
Yeah. It totally did. You know, it's why I have this book called The Golden Cage. I was like living in my own imprisonment I had created out of fear. So you're right. That fear was what was holding me back. And finally, I reached a moment, though, where I realized that I was never going to be happy no matter what I did. I had tried so many things to make this work, but in my heart of hearts, I knew this was not my passion and that I needed to follow my heart. So I decided it was better to go for it, go back to school and do what I really wanted to do versus staying stuck in what I call a golden cage and be miserable.
Well, good for you. We'll unpack the golden cage a little further down the road, but I have to say, at that early age to take that leap it takes a lot of bravado and courage. So now, when you started your business as an entrepreneur, you first walked into the field of hypnotherapy. And share with us a little bit about how you got your clients then and how you solicit your clients now, because there's been a big shift in the way that people acquire clientele now.
Well, first of all, I would love to kind of chat a little bit about why I kind of went into hypnotherapy and a little bit about that shift, because I think it's really interesting. I was so unhappy at work at Procter & Gamble that I went in search of a solution. And that's when I discovered hypnotherapy. And I did my own personal kind of intensive with hypnotherapy, a whole series of sessions, which drove me to realize that it really worked. I went from having very low self-esteem to having much higher self-esteem, having more confidence in myself and more self-acceptance. And what had happened after this intensive is my boss at work actually came to me and said, "What did you do? Like, you seem completely different. You're so much stronger. You're so much more empowered than you were before." And instead of firing me, which is what I thought she was going to do, she actually promoted me, and I stayed another year there. So I had this amazing experience with hypnotherapy. I believed in it. And that's why I decided to go back to school and get a degree in psychology and have a specialization in hypnotherapy and be certified in that arena. So back to your question about clients. So at that time, and I really focused on doing health fairs. So I would go and set up a booth and say, "Do you know what hypnotherapy is?" And then I would give people like little demos. I would invite them into my office. I had a physical office where we would do a free session so they could get a sense of how hypnotherapy works, how you access your subconscious mind, and really help them pass through those kind of concerns and obstacles about what is this crazy thing called hypnotherapy, right? Like it needed to be hands-on. So a lot of my work was that way. And then I've always really been into networking. And so there were a lot of networking associations at the time when I first started hypnotherapy that I joined. Leads groups, that's when you basically have a group of people that support each other and referring business to each other. So I was in professional leads groups and part of chambers of commerce and really met a lot of people face to face to get my clientele started in hypnotherapy.
That was in the day before major virtual connection. And absolutely. And like you said, it was more hands-on, but also you had that person-to-person connection. And today, especially since what's happened in the world, we now have the virtual connection. So in a way, it's really just transformed over into another platform because you did have the hands-on, but now, you know, we're all getting more accustomed to the virtual, and soliciting your clients today is more what we're doing. But you still need that connection, correct? You need to connect with individuals.
Yeah, I mean, what I found is helpful now, obviously now I'm a coach and we can kind of explain how that transition happened. And I still do hypnotherapy, but more in a coaching world. I just believe the most important thing still is how do you create a personal connection with someone, even if you are working in a more digital platform. And so one of the things that I found helpful that I love doing are master classes where I give very specific information with, you know, techniques and tips to help people transform different areas of, for instance, their relationships. And that creates a connection by at least in a group setting. And then I invite people to participate in a one-on-one experience if they need more information or support to get a little sense of who I am and what I'm up to. So there still is that one-on-one connection eventually in the process, but more via a Zoom call.
Right. And I love that you use a masterclass as a way to introduce individuals. So that's a piece of really great information. So, you know, don't be afraid to sort of launch one of those to get people to get to know you and connect. And you mentioned very briefly there about moving on from the hypnotherapy, because my next question is finding your heart's calling. You talked when we were speaking earlier about your business niche, and you discovered hypnotherapy wasn't really your plan or your path, and you shifted your focus. So what advice would you share with entrepreneurs who are challenged in finding their niche? And just maybe explain a little bit more about that, because we often get frustrated if when we step into an entrepreneurial position and we think this is what we really want to do, and then we get frustrated because we discover that's not. So we kind of beat ourselves up. So it's nice if you can share some of that with our audience.
Yeah, well, thank you for that question. This has been quite an exploration. I'm going to give a little bit about my backstory and then address the whole thing about niching. So basically, after I've been doing hypnotherapy for about 4 years, I met a coach. And that was the first life coach I'd met or heard about in 2000. And I was super excited because all of a sudden this big light bulb went on, like, that's what I'm actually meant to do. So I enrolled in a coaching school, Coach U, and became certified as a coach. And for me, what I've discovered about my evolution, even in coaching, because I've done originally a lot of business coaching with small business owners and entrepreneurs, moving more into more traditional life coaching, getting unstuck in careers, to working with relationships. Because what happens when you start working with somebody, let's say you're working in the entrepreneurial field, is you discover that everybody has relationships also. And so you end up coaching people in different aspects of their lives, and it doesn't just stay in one aspect. And as you do that, for instance, as I did that, as I started coaching people more and more in different parts and realms of their life, I discovered that there was a connection, more of a passion in a certain area. So I started doing more specializing in these areas. So what I think happens as an entrepreneur is that you grow through your own experiences in your life, through your own experience as an entrepreneur, but also in your personal life. And that as you grow, your heart draws you to different paths, and it's kind of normal as an entrepreneur almost to need to continue to reevaluate who you are and what you really want to bring out to the world, because as you grow, that probably will change and you'll have different gifts to offer the world because you are evolving, and thank goodness we are all evolving.
That's for sure. That's a great piece of advice and information, because you're right. We are evolving, and even our goals, what they might be today, will change next month, next year. And so our paths could shift. So just be flexible with yourself and know that that's okay. And speaking of go ahead.
Oh, and I was going to say, one of the things I think is important is this thing that and you might introduce that actually, but is about really listening to what's true to yourself versus trying to get yourself focused on how you should be. Like, oh, I need to stay here when something else is calling you.
That's exactly where we were going. So you opened that door. Thanks, Margot, because the question was listening to your heart. Because when we had our earlier conversation, you said at 18 that you knew what your passion was, but people and society negated your dreams. And share the advice on how you listen to your heart, because I think that really has to do with the relationship part too.
Totally. So really what happened for me personally is I had a natural interest when I was 18. A young adult, I was super fascinated by relationships and had already started reading a lot of books on relationships and the dynamics, because I really felt that it was important to have high quality relationships in my life. And I just kept exploring that. However, I was kind of like, well, how can I make a living doing what I really want to do? And I was determined that I was going to find a career that was fairly lucrative so that I could, sustain an international lifestyle. I was very drawn to the international world. So anyway, that's why I went instead into international business as my major, instead of following my heart's calling, which was more about really psychology. How do people work? What are the emotions? How do feelings happen? All that sort of thing. So to go to your second half of your question, what I've discovered, and it's taken me quite a long time through many years, is how to better listen to my heart's calling. Like, what is my heart really telling me? And there's a really simple way to determine this, and yet it takes practice. So basically what it is that when you're thinking of doing something and you kind of, if you're thinking of a new path to take, for instance, is to close your eyes and visualize yourself in the future in that new path. Just sort of see yourself. What are you doing? What are you saying? What are other people saying to you? What are you seeing? You're like, get yourself into that future place. And then notice your reaction in your heart. Like, are you excited? Is it expansive? Are you scared? And so basically, your heart communicates through subtle energy shifts in your body. And for most people, this tends to be an expansive and more opening feeling. A yes, and then a no tends to have a contraction and just a little bit of a drawing in. But everybody is slightly different. Some people might even be kind of auditory, and so they may get a response like, no, that's not a good idea. They may literally hear themselves talking to themselves, or they may get a yes, go for it. So it's important. What I discovered is to practice in small areas of your life about following your heart's calling or what your heart is saying. It's like, for instance, what do you want for dinner? Practice seeing if it's a yes or no response to have pizza for dinner, or to, go and out with friends, or to buy a new dress. I think clothing is actually really interesting because you can get a real sense of what is your heart telling you when you have, like, you're really in a new outfit. How do you feel? Do you feel expansive, or is this a little like, oh, I'm not so sure? And so I have my clients and myself, I play with using it in very simple occasions and circumstances that can then be brought out to major life decisions.
Right. And I could see how that would play in relationships, because you can use that to have them visualize and have them feel their emotions, their heart, and the reaction that they're getting without all the stimulus from everywhere else. That's really interesting, and that's a great practice that any of us can do anywhere, for anything for that matter, whether it's taking the leap or going out with someone new or trying something new. Yeah, that's
I use that in all realms. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I love that exercise. Now, your book, we mentioned it very briefly at the beginning, The Golden Cage, from Entrapment to Entrepreneur.
Entrapment to empowerment.
Excuse me. I've got that here, from entrapment to, my bad. I wrote it incorrectly.
That's fine.
So yes, from entrapment to entrepreneur. Now, explain the power of that metaphor, because I loved how you used it in the book and your title.
Yeah. So it's basically, the idea is that we build cages in our life. Each bar is actually fear of the unknown. When there's a new level of fear that comes in, we're like, oh, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to build this cage around myself. But really, the cage is made out of gold bars, gold material, because there are gifts and good things about this cage. There can be prestige, financial wealth. For instance, in my job at Procter and Gamble, I had the prestige, and I was making a good living. That, for instance, was golden for me. In a relationship, it can simply be that, you have a beautiful house, that you're comfortable in it, that you have a whole family unit set up. So what I'm saying is, we find ourselves in these cages, and we know, though, inside that we feel that there's something more beyond it, that we've actually entrapped ourselves in something that our heart no longer is in alignment with.
Yes. So go ahead.
Oh. So in my book, I talk about my own experience in those cages, my relationship cage and the career cages, and how I was able to fly free of them and really work through my things to get from that entrapped place to that more empowered place.
Yes, it's a great book. I would encourage anyone to read it. It really does, and it's beautifully written. It's in more of a story form, and I love that we call it the golden cage, because we often think that that's the realm of where we want to live, or what we should be living is more the point. But that's why it keeps us entrapped, is because it is golden, but maybe not golden to us in our heart, but it's golden from a societal point of view. But yeah, I thought that was a beautiful way of putting it, because when I first picked it up, I thought, oh, the golden cage, meaning it's a good thing. But see, therein lies the metaphor, because we think it's the good thing, but really it's what's holding us back. So yeah, I love
Yeah.
that.
Thank you so much, Jane. And I do want to say that, like Jane said, it is a half memoir and half coaching technique. So
Hmm.
it has a very authentic flavor because I really express some really deep, intense things that happened in my life in it.
Yes, it's wonderful. I would recommend it to everyone, and that's what makes it good reading too, because it does have the story. It's not just a how-to,
Hmm.
and we always resonate with stories. Now, you're a relationship coach, right? And now in your profession, and tell us a bit about how you empower women through relationship coaching, because as you and I discussed earlier, if your relationship is off, it affects all aspects of not only your life, but your business. And especially if you're going to step into the realm, or you are in the realm of entrepreneurship, you need to be all there. So give us some insight into that.
Yeah, one of the big things that I run across with women and my clients in particular is this sense of, to begin with, they kind of be almost in this sort of victimhood or disempowered state. Like, there's nothing I can really do. I have to put up with this. I have to put up with this relationship experience. I'm not getting my needs met. There's a sense of everything is not going how I need it to go, and I'm really unhappy, and they don't know what to do differently. So part of what I'm really about is helping identify those unhealthy patterns, behavior patterns that are creating distance in the relationship, that are creating disconnection. So a lot of times, both parties, of course, have their triggers. And one of the things that I work on is identifying your core triggers that are having you interact with your partner in an unhealthy way, and go back and figure out where those core triggers started and help shift those triggers. For many people, it can be a past relationship, or it can be even when they were a child, that there's some past trigger that anytime their spouse does something, it triggers that past wounding, and that creates this disconnection. It can create fighting, it can create feeling rejected, abandonment. So there's a lot of really unpacking that, those unhealthy patterns, and then taking a more empowered, reprogram a new, more empowered belief system. So basically, it's shifting these, like, I can't do anything about this, I'm at this person's mercy, or I don't have I can't change anything, to, yeah, I actually can do something. I can shift my own behavior patterns.
Right. And my own beliefs, because our
My own
thoughts,
beliefs.
yeah,
Yeah.
our
So the
perspective.
beliefs really create, yeah.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
The beliefs really create your behavior patterns. So it's shifting your negative beliefs to the more empowered beliefs, and also shifting the negative energy to more empowered energy. So one of the big issues for most people is they don't know how to handle the energy, the feelings, and the emotions in their bodies. They don't know how to handle anger, how to handle grief, sadness, rejection, abandonment, all those intense emotions. And
Hmm.
so another thing that I do is help people shift their relationship to their emotions so that they feel more
Mm.
empowered with them and not overwhelmed by them. Um, so what I mean, for instance, is, like, if you have anger that overwhelms you, you're going to throw anger out on your partner. And because you throw anger out on your partner, you're probably going to escalate into arguments and fights. So I help people really work with that anger energy and help them diffuse that energy in healthy ways, and then go and have an empowered conversation with their partner so that they can get their needs met. Because most of the time, anger actually comes from not getting one's needs met. But
Mm.
if we don't ask for our needs, or we haven't got our needs met for a long time, it can have built up to a really high level. And then it's really hard to ask for your needs to be met in a way that is connected, solid, centered, instead of reactive.
Right, right. But I love that you coach people on how to respond and deal with their emotions, and that brings the awareness, because often we just, if it's anger, we fly off the handle, or if it's sadness, we break down. But if we take that moment after repetition, after the coaching that you've instilled, then we can sit back and say, okay, now wait a minute, be curious and what's happening, because that makes such a difference. But that is so powerful. That could serve everybody in all aspects of life. Really. Yeah.
Yeah. I personally wish that they, had courses in college or even younger, in high school, about how do we work with our emotional bodies. Mm-hmm. I think we spend so much time focusing and studying other things, but really we don't know what to do with our emotions, and they take over us, they overwhelm us. And so a lot about this is developing new healthy behavior patterns and relationship to our own emotions. And then we can really be in what I call the sovereign state, the state of centeredness when we interact with our partner about getting our needs met, communicating really important things. So what I'm trying to say, it's not about you not asking for what you want, but it's about coming from a different place.
Yes.
A place of empowerment.
I love it. Wow, Margot, that is such a light bulb. I mean, it's very impactful, and I think, lots of individuals can not only relate to that, but can benefit from that. And speaking of emotions, the next question actually has to do with the emotion of fear. How would you move out of fear in a business or your relationship? Because fear is so powerful. And I don't know if you have a special method or a tool or even some advice of how people can move out of the emotion of fear to help serve them, as opposed to bringing them down.
Yeah, this is really one of my most favorite topics, is fear, because it's something that I personally have struggled with, I would say, pretty much my entire existence. So basically what I'd like to first start out with is that the traditional ways of pushing fear away or pretending that you don't have fear, it doesn't really work, because it can sabotage you. The more you push against something or resist it, the stronger it actually gets. So I have an entirely different approach that I recommend, which is one of embracing fear. It's really welcoming fear into your life and even saying, hey, fear, come on in, let me feel you. So the first step is feel the fear in your body and notice what that actually feels like. Because so much of our time is spent trying to never feel it. So if you actually allow yourself to feel it in a certain way, which is not attached to a story, but just say, what does it actually feel like in my body? And ask yourself, where is it in my body? What color would it have? If it had a color, what sound would it make? And you go into it in your body. What you will discover is that it actually will start to dissipate to some degree by going into it versus pushing it away. That's the first secret to actually working with fear, is to consciously embrace it. And to realize that fear and excitement are actually very close cousins. Fear, and I heard this quote the other day, I wish I remembered who said it, but basically the difference is that fear is excitement without breath. You aren't breathing. You're holding your breath. Wow. But excitement, you're breathing. And you're still having those little butterflies. Mm-hmm. So what I say to people is acknowledge fear, bring it in, and then allow yourself to actually say, fear, you are my friend. I'm going to befriend you. Look and see what fear looks like. And I imagine and visualize that I hold fear by the hand when I go into a new situation. And I said, we are going to march right in here, fear. We're going to just do this, because it's natural for a human being, I believe, to experience some level of fear when they walk into a new situation. There are certain things that can lessen that, but honestly, action is the only way forward 100% with fear. And so you can lessen it by welcoming it. You can lessen it by visualizing your success in the new scene. You can see yourself, I'll give you an example that's super easy in my life to bring back. As one day I wanted to learn how to salsa dance. And I remember the moment I walked into a big room of 100 people salsa dancing, and I was scared to death, literally scared. And so I had to, before I walked in there, I had to visualize and imagine myself being accepted by people, that I was dancing. I could sort of see myself in the room, but I was still scared to some degree. And then I said, fear, we're just going to walk in here and do this. We're going to do it anyway. We can do this. And I felt the more I can push through those moments of fear, the stronger my relationship becomes to fear. And I'm just like, oh, that little fear, that's just a friend of mine. Let's bring it along. It doesn't stop me as much as it ever used to. Like, so it's really an ongoing experience, because most of my life I've had to continue to face fear and move forward anyway. Like, just to be real, fear is not something that is unique to you. If you're feeling fear in your life, it's a human experience.
Yes, it is. And I can't imagine never feeling it, or I don't think I've ever met an individual who has never felt fear. But that's interesting. I love that change of perspective. Befriend your fear. You know, it's almost the saying is, fear, do not fear the fear. You know, this, I mean, I can't recall the saying right off the top of my head.
Is it the saying, feel the fear and do it anyway? That's one of the famous sayings.
Yes, feel the fear and do it anyway. But the way, the perspective that you're painting, though, is not like pushing through it, because that is the push through, right? That is the just take the leap off the end of the cliff and hope for the best. What you're saying goes back to befriending your emotion of fear, you know, taking it by the hand and pretending or imagining that it's your friend. And then it completely changes the perspective. And when you change that perspective, you're like, yeah, okay, you know, I know you're there, but just shut up now. You know, I got this. And I got this.
That works in really, like, in a lot of the situations. And I do want to put something out there for folks who have more paralyzing fear, where this technique is really challenging for them. Is most of the time, what stops people when it's paralyzing to a really high level is a past experience in their life that is being triggered by this current experience. And we can just take a phobia, for instance. If you're afraid of snakes because you encountered a snake when you were really young and you see a new snake, your body's going to react in danger. And so there are techniques like, well, EMDR, for instance, and other techniques that you can actually go back and desensitize yourself, it's called. Basically allow yourself to access the reptilian part of your brain, where all those emotions are stored, that intense fear, and allow that to be released in this technique, and then reprogram yourself with a new positive belief. So intense fear, it is kind of helpful to do some sort of processing. I'm talking, that's different than just kind of, I call it everyday fear. Like, oh my God, I'm kind of scared about going off and meeting these new people, or doing an interview, or these steps in a new business. There's a lot of having to step out of your comfort zone when you start a business. And that's why I'm bringing it up, because everything's brand new. And I want to acknowledge that when you're doing something new and you're stepping into the unknown, fear is part of the equation. And that's a good place to befriend it.
Right. And taking the action helps you overcome it. Absolutely. And I do understand that there is a debilitating fear, which is completely different. But yes, you need to move through it. But thank you. That was very insightful. And of course, it would serve in relationships, because a lot of individuals who are looking for the Mr. Right or the Mrs. Right, whatever the case might be, that's fearful, you know, having to meet strange people. I mean, to a lot of individuals, there are some that maybe it's exciting, but like you said, fear is excitement, but without the breath, which I find fascinating. So maybe when we feel fear, we should all just take some deep breaths, which they tell you to do as well.
Take the deep breaths. One of the big things I want to just touch on relationship fear. So you acknowledged the part about meeting new people, but one of the big things I think that holds people back from manifesting or creating relationships that really work for them is the fear of being alone. We want to desperately be in a relationship. And because of that, we may settle too quickly for a relationship when we're dating, for instance, instead of doing what I call sorting, really having your criteria. And as you date, saying, oh, how well does this person match me? This fear of being alone can override that. And we're like, oh, this is good enough. We've got good chemistry. You know, there's love there, but really we are starting to settle. And I just noticed that that's something I did over and over in my life until I really learned my lessons on it. I used to settle. Now, obviously, now I'm with my soulmate and it's beautiful, but I had a habit of settling until I really got the concept of sorting into my being.
Right.
And because I had to face my fear of being alone and my fear of like, it's better for me to really stand in my power, ask for what I need and want in a relationship versus settling. And when I could face that fear of being alone, it all transformed.
Wow, that's a great piece of advice. So well, actually, my next question was manifesting your dreams. Now, whether that be a relationship or business or personal, uh, I'm not sure if is that your best piece of advice, or is there something else that you might like to share about
Oh,
manifesting, your dreams?
I have a lot of thoughts about manifesting your dreams. One of them is definitely getting a clear vision. So, of course, in order to manifest anything, it's important to be able to know where you're going and what your vision is. One of the things that I think is really key to keep in mind is that you don't have to know the how when you think about the vision. That it's just about where am I going, not exactly how am I going to get there, because those steps will unfold as you go along. The other thing that may happen in this process of manifesting your dreams is as you take those steps forward towards your vision may change, is what we were just discussing. Even if it changes, it's still important to have a roadmap to understand where you want to put your energy. So that's I think the first step towards manifesting your dreams is just getting that clarity.
Hmm. That's interesting. Clarity, because that goes right through to business, life, relationships.
Yeah.
Very,
Uh,
very interesting.
I mean, most of the time when I've worked with clients in the past around their dreams, specifically, a lot of them came to me for career guidance. I would say, well, what do you really want to do? And they're like, I don't know. I'm not really. So there's a lot of, when you're in the I don't know, it's really hard. Think about it this way. You can't put your energy in any direction. It's all scattered. So
Right.
we are much more we're very powerful beings when we have focus. So the
Yes.
point in this is if you have a vision, you can put your energy towards that vision and then shift if you need to, but at least you can channel your energy in that direction. Um, and the other thing I think is super important is know that you are going to run across obstacles. Be aware that obstacles are a part of manifestation. Because most people are like, well, why am I hitting an obstacle? Oh my gosh, there's something terribly wrong. Maybe I'm going down the wrong path. We make up these crazy stories about obstacles and we think that we've made a mistake, that it's never going to work out. Our mind, we run across one or two obstacles. It makes this crazy story about,
Mm.
oh no, everything's going bad. Maybe I shouldn't do this. And then a lot of self-doubt comes up. So
Mm.
be aware. If you're aware of the fact that you are going to encounter obstacles and this is normal, it will help you manifest your dreams because you will be able to move through those obstacles and know that that's part of the process.
Yes. Thank you for making us aware of that, because you're right. We think because we're so clear, we've got clear sailing. It doesn't always work out that way. Was there any last piece of advice you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, I just want to say that to trust yourself. And this is something that's taken me a long time to develop, and still there are moments where it's challenging. But what I have found is that when you're wondering, like, am I on the right path? Should I be doing this? And there's all these questions that come up. Am I in the right relationship? It's like when we start doubting ourselves and wondering what's going on, the most important thing to do is to be able to get centered and just check in and just do a real like assessment of how am I really feeling when I think about this path or feel into the path. I think that's so important to focus on our own internal world versus the external. So what we tend to do a little bit too quickly actually is ask other people's advice. What do you think I should do? Should I do this? Should I do that? And then their input creates maybe sometimes even more chaos. So first get clear a little bit more about what's going on for you, and then you can speak with somebody else So that's how you develop more self-trust, is this ability to check in and kind of get clarity and connection to your heart.
Yes, and maybe journal it sometimes, because we that actually, with pen and paper, not computer, it makes such a difference.
Right.
There is a relationship because you're more connected with that. But if you're really
Yeah.
young, you might not know how to write. There might not be an
There's
option.
this, Jane, there's something I really love about what you're saying, and I'm just going to quickly say this kind of
Sure.
technique with journaling that I particularly think is helpful, is to bypass the conscious mind. You want to kind of get more in touch with your gut, your heart, and I call it more emotional release journaling. Is to write more from what's coming up, and it's the streaming of consciousness. So you're writing, 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 writing. And if you don't know what to write, you say, I don't know what to write. So it's actually coming forth on whatever the topic is, versus this very linear, like, well, what do I really think about this? You don't really want to read actually what you're journaling. You just want to be able to get it out and then say, okay, what were the key takeaways? Like, it helps to be more in the streaming of consciousness. It's been a powerful technique for me.
Wow, that's fabulous. I think you need to do a class on that. It's
There
funny
you
because
go.
you can tell people, you can give them that advice to do it, but it's interesting if they attend a class or something that they signed up for, they're more intentional and they're more likely to do it. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, a journaling class. We've all heard about journaling and how beneficial it can be, but often we don't give ourselves the time to do it. So sometimes we just
Right.
need to have somebody direct us and say, okay, and now, you have to come back and, I want to see that you've completed a book or at least a couple of pages. A book might be a little excessive, but so I know a couple of people who can write really fast and just stream of consciousness and go galore. Well, I wanted to
Yeah.
open it up to give you the opportunity to let our audience know about your offer.
Yeah, so I am doing a relationship reset bootcamp for women, and it's to help women be more empowered in their relationships, help transform them from being disconnected, to ones that have more connection, compassion, trust, intimacy. And so, again, we're going to be really looking at those core triggers, but also very concrete exercises around, for instance, how do you have an empowered conversation? How do you shift from being judgmental to being accepting? How do you champion your partner? How do you create more intimacy and connection and passion with your partner? So it's a very hands-on, technique-focused course. And so I'm offering that, and you can learn more about it at relationshipresetbootcamp.com, like it sounds.
Right, right. And we'll have all of that information in our summit directory, so you don't have to remember it. And I did want to ask you one last question, because we are here on the Epic Vision Zone. And if your life were an epic story, what would the title be?
Oh my gosh, that is such a great, great question. So one of the what came to me, it has to do with this the story that I wrote one day. And I think it's really about, I would call it, how the ugly duckling turned into a beautiful swan. Um, because I have had such a journey in my life about thinking that something was wrong with me, that I was the ugly duckling. I spent a lot of time really shifting my energy, and I've really gotten to a place where I can see my beauty and how much I have to offer the world. So I'm just saying that from a place of personal development. My own journey was really being able to shift my own ability to accept and love myself deeper.
Beautiful. It's a little bit long, but that's okay. We can make it the whole front cover. But
Yeah,
it's a,
sorry. Yeah, I need to shorten it a little. That's the idea, though. The
it's
ugly
okay.
duckling to
Yeah,
the golden
just
swan, something like that.
yeah, yeah. But no, I understand. And of course, you're using all of that now in your coaching, which is beautiful, because you've had that life experience. And that's what gives us the wisdom and the knowledge to help others, sharing that gift that you've actually gone through. That makes a big
Yeah, and I
difference
think
when you.
that's, I just want to say to everybody too that I do think it's important to acknowledge that we all have had intense experiences where we've learned from, and those are our biggest gifts, right? Those are what we can share with the world. And so in each experience we have, there is a gift for us, and that we can grow stronger and then support other people, hopefully, in helping them also benefit from what we've learned in those intense experiences. So there you go.
Absolutely. I so appreciate that. And everybody understand that as well, as if you're going through something, there'll be a reason and there'll be a way for you to use that as a gift later on in your life. And I wanted to say thank you again so much, Margot, for being here with us. We had a lot of technical struggles to start with,
we did.
But we powered through it. We powered through it, hair on fire, but here we are.
Yes.
And I want to encourage everyone to go to Margot's page and bio on the Summit directory. You will find all of her information, her social media links, and her offer, which is the boot camp. It's a boot camp, right? Yes.
Right. Yeah. Relationship Reset Bootcamp.
There you go. It's a long one, but
I must be into long titles.
Yeah, you must be, but I'm sure it'll be fabulous. And be sure to follow me on Instagram at Jane Applegath and check out how you can become an epic entrepreneur and have your dreams come true at janeapplegath.com. Thank you once again. This is the Epic Vision Zone, transforming your dream into epic success. Congratulations for signing up for the Female Entrepreneur Revolution. We're bringing you some of the most exciting female entrepreneurs from around the globe to share with you their knowledge, their ideas, their inspiration, and more importantly, their resources to elevate you to prosperity and freedom. And by being here, you're on the cusp of something great, your epic future. I'm Jane Applegath, founder of the Epic Vision Zone and producer of the Female Entrepreneur Revolution. Be sure to get your VIP pass and join me after the summit on June 16th for a very special VIP coaching session where we'll have hot seating, summit Q&A, and a special guest appearance by one of our speakers just for you, where we'll ignite your vision, up-level your confidence, and set you on the path to your dreams' epic success. This is your opportunity calling. It's time to take action. Get your VIP pass now. I can't wait to see you on the other side.